Item: SCP-1394. Code name: Dream Syringe. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-1394 is to be kept in a standard security locker at Site-19. Subjects injected with SCP-1394 should be confined to a testing room while asleep, and should be kept at Site-19 afterwards for further observation. Testing of SCP-1394 has been halted temporarily. Consult Interview D-1394-5D for details. Description: SCP-1394 is an ornate brass syringe, dating to the early 1600s. When fully assembled, SCP-1394 will fill with a saline solution at a rate of 1 ml per minute until full. When SCP-1394 is used to inject this saline solution into a patient afflicted with a disease or condition, the subject will begin to sleepwalk 4 minutes after their next onset of REM sleep. The subject cannot be woken for the next 40 minutes, and will wake upon the conclusion of this time period. While sleepwalking, subjects will experience a dream that accurately simulates their surrounding environment, except for the presence of various medications and medical devices in the vicinity. The subject reports involuntarily using these devices in the dream to perform a medical procedure on themselves with the intent to cure or alleviate the condition in question. The actions they describe correspond to actions taken during sleepwalking. Medical procedures performed under SCP-1394's influence only somewhat correspond to appropriate or real-life medical treatments, and will often entail the use of medical implements whose function is unknown. Subjects who perform a medical procedure on themselves under SCP-1394's influence experience a partial alleviation of the disease or condition, which typically entails the return of superficial functioning of the affected body part despite the continuation of the ailment, as well as a nausea towards associated symptoms. See Testing Log for further details. Experiment Log 1394-A. Subject: D-1394-1, diagnosed with lung cancer in the left lung. Procedure: D-1394-1 reported self-administering anesthetic before performing a lobectomy in a medically appropriate, if drastically accelerated, fashion. Notably, the subject did not report any blood loss, and no precautions were taken to prevent it. Result: standard lung function is returned, despite the presence of a tumor that would normally prevent lung function. Shortness of breath, fatigue, and chest pain were alleviated. Subject was unaware of his persistent cough and wheezing, and attributed the interruptions in his speech to fits of narcolepsy. D-1394-1 died 4 months later after the cancer metastasized to other organs. Subject: D-1394-2, diagnosed with narcolepsy. Procedure: D-1394-2 reported using a needle to administer several injections of fine black sand into the eyeballs, forehead, and chest. This was described as uncomfortable and painful. Result: D-1394-2 continues to experience narcolepsy. During periods of cataplexy associated with the condition, the subject will remain in an upright position despite the relaxation of the muscles. The force responsible for this has not been identified. D-1394-2 will sleepwalk during daytime sleep, and believes that her associated dreams are genuine, temporary changes to local reality. Subject: D-1394-3, missing her upper left central incisor. An appropriate dental implant was placed near D-1394-3 prior to sleep. Procedure: D-1394-3 reported using the implant to replace the missing tooth, then sealing it in place with an unidentified blue adhesive. The implant was not used in reality. Result: D1394-3 was capable of biting and chewing as though the missing tooth was present, though the subject's speech remained mildly impaired. D1394-3 perceived the implant to be present, and reported no change after it was actually implanted. Subject: D1394-4, missing left hand. Procedure: D1394-4 reported immersing his left arm in a vat of cold, white, viscous liquid for roughly 40 minutes. Result: with practice, D1394-4 was able to develop a form of telekinesis roughly equivalent to a left hand of normal strength. The subject is capable of manipulating objects that are behind physical barriers, and experiences no ill effects from handling harmful objects. This ability only functions if the subject is observing the item being manipulated. Interruptions caused by blinking typically result in the subject dropping any held items. The subject reports possessing a left hand made of an unidentified white solid. Subject: D1394-5, blind since age 2. Procedure: D1394-5 reported using a metal syringe to inject herself with a very hot liquid, then falling asleep 35 minutes later. Result: D1394-5 remains in REM sleep, and all attempts to wake her have been ineffective. However, the subject's dreams closely resemble reality and she is fully somnambulant, enabling communication with researchers. See interview log D1394-5C for further information. Interview log D1394-5C. The following interview was conducted with D1394-5 17 hours after exposure to SCP-1394 to assess medium-term consequences of her condition. Begin log. Dr. Braun. Good evening. D1394-5. Mind if I sit here? D1394-5. Yeah, whatever. Dr. Braun sits opposite D1394-5. First things first, are you still capable of sight? D1394-5. I guess. Dr. Braun, that's good to hear. Could you do me a favor? D1394-5. Sure. Dr. Braun puts SCP-1394 on the table in front of D1394-5. Dr. Braun, could you pick this up and tell me whether it's the syringe you used in that dream? D1394-5 picks up SCP-1394 and examines it with her hands. Greater than sign. D1394-5. Yeah, wait. This is the exact pattern it had. How did you get this? Dr. Braun. That's sort of a long story. D1394-5. Oh my god. Am I still dreaming? Dr. Braun. Technically yes. But. D1394-5. Becoming agitated. Fuck. What did you do to me? Dr. Braun. Please calm down and let me X. D1394-5. Wait, is this what you used on me yesterday too? D1394-5 slams SCP-1394 against the corner of the table repeatedly. SCP-1394 experiences minor, inconsequential damage. Security personnel enter the room and restrain D1394-5, retrieving SCP-1394. D1394-5's arm makes movements as if to continue this action. Greater than sign. Dr. Braun. Now, if you would let me finish. You are dreaming, but your dreams are, or were, a very close match to reality. Do you understand? D1394-5. No. You can't make me. Dr. Braun. Nobody's making you do anything. D1394-5. I'm not using it again. Why won't this fucking thing break? Dr. Braun. D1394-5. Can you hear me? D1394-5. Why does it have to be me? Dr. Braun. I think we're done here. Security? D1394-5. And what's in it for me? Why should I believe you? End log. D1394-5's dreams remain divergent from reality. The subject does not perceive any attempt to remove SCP-1394 from her possession, and believes that personnel are continually exhorting her to inject herself with SCP-1394 for reasons that are currently unclear. D1394-5 has been retained indefinitely for further observation. Interview log D1394-5D. 2 days following interview D1394-5C. D1394-5 addressed a maintenance worker, instructing him to locate Dr. Braun. The following interview took place upon Dr. Braun's arrival. D1394-5. I need you to repeat everything I'm saying to you. Dr. Braun. Sorry, what? D1394-5. Good. Dr. Braun. Can you hear me? D1394-5. D1394-5. You need to use it on someone more cooperative. This one isn't working. Sorry, what are you T? Alright. Silence for 13 seconds. Greater than sign. Dr. Braun. Keep going. D1394-5. We have so much to offer you. We left our medicine in your dreams for you. Dr. Braun. But you need us to use the syringe, on someone else. D1394-5. That's right. She can't be the bridge between us if she won't come to us. Find someone else with no vision. Make them use the key 3. Wait, hold up. Silence for 25 seconds. Greater than sign. Dr. Braun. Are you still there? D1394-5. Oh my god, they can hear me. Can't they? I'm talking in my sleep. How stupid do you think I am? Hey, listen. These guys aren't. D1394-5 begins to experience muscle spasms, before opening her eyes and becoming rigid. No further communication was successful. Greater than sign. D1394-5 remains in a fetal position. Attempts to alter her posture, including those involving heavy application of force, have failed. D1394-5 responds to visual stimuli, but exhibits no signs of consciousness. Samples indicate that D1394-5's blood contains 12% black sand by volume. A further attempt at communication by MTF Omicron Rho with the entities encountered has been proposed.